Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the very first movie podcast. It's unnamed currently.
Correct.
I am Brian.
And I'm Jovan.
And, we're just a couple dudes, a couple buddies, longtime friends that decided to do a podcast. Actually, we decided a long time ago, right?
Yeah, we just haven't done it.
No, we did. We did try to do it.
It just came out bad.
It came out bad. Well, what did we did it at a Panera Bread back, I want to say 2 years ago?
Yeah.
3 years ago. And I think I actually had more technical gear. We brought in, I had a Tascam recorder and a microphone, and I think we got looked at like we were fucking idiots.
Yeah, so we figured this is just much better.
Yeah, this is much less conspicuous. A couple of dudes sitting in a car outside of a movie theater with an iPad. We were going to go into the parking garage and do it because we thought it'd be a little quieter, but we did realize that the police do tend to go through there, so
we don't want to.
No. On the way over here, back over here, we were kind of tailed by a cop, and we don't like cops.
It's not that we don't like cops.
No.
It's just that we don't like interactions with police.
All right, I should put it that way. We don't like interactions with police. I don't have a problem with cops. I have family that are cops. Anyway, we're already digressing, and I already knew that this was going to happen anyway because this is how most of our conversations end up. But, no, movies. What did we do? We just got out of seeing Father Figures.
Yeah.
And this is the first movie we're going to talk about this week. And Father Figures, starring Ed Helms, Owen Wilson. Who else?
Glenn Close, Ving Rhames.
Terry Bradshaw.
Christopher Walken.
Cat Williams. That was one of the only things that excited me was the fact that Cat Williams was in this because I haven't seen that guy in a movie in a while.
Well, it's because he got beat up by a little kid.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. And his career kind of started to spiral down the toilet. But we'll get into Cat Williams' performance in a minute. But Father Figures, the fact that we just ran down a list of almost double digits of star-studded cast. Was there like 9 people on the poster for this thing?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's
how many?
8.
Yeah, 8 stars names on here, and we were saying earlier, most of them don't have more than even 10 or 15 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
If that. Ving Rhames,
maybe 5
or 6 minutes of screen time total in the movie, and he's on the poster. That's usually a bad sign.
Yeah.
When you're in the movie on the poster and you don't even have more than 5 minutes of screen time, probably bad. Christopher Walken, same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe 10 minutes total screen time, if that.
They should have really just put Ed Helms, Owen Wilson, and Glenn Close.
Yeah, because to be honest, she maybe had 20 minutes of screen time in the movie, a little bit more here or there. She was more in the beginning.
Yeah.
Without spoiling anything, we're not that there's much to spoil about this movie. I guess there could be. We could.
There probably will be spoilers. We're gonna
there may be some spoilers. We won't get too deep into the details of the spoilers.
You don't need to for this movie.
And to be honest, we won't talk about the ending because the ending does have a little bit of a kind of a twisty kind of ending.
One thing I don't like is they labeled it as a comedy. We're going by the IMDb page.
Yeah.
It's labeled as a comedy, and it's kind of I call it more of a dramedy because there's a lot of drama.
I would say there's more drama than comedy in this movie. And I feel like one of the main things. But anyway, let's get into what the movie's about first. So, Father Figures. Originally, I did read this. Originally, this movie was called Bastards.
Yeah, I read that as well.
It was originally titled Bastards. Obviously, they decided to rename the movie, probably because they realized that shock value title wasn't something that was worth.
No, that name is kind of a...
I get it. It would pull... It could have possibly pulled an audience in just based off of that name, but I could see how it could be offensive to some people that are legitimately bastard children. That don't have parents. Yeah, fathers or any parents for that matter. So...
But, sorry, I had to get some mints.
We have coffee breath. We drink Starbucks a lot. Not that that's an endorsement of Starbucks, but whatever.
But either way, it's it wasn't a bad movie. It's just that I feel the labeling as a comedy is kind of a stretch because there wasn't that much comedy per se.
Right.
And then
it was, the thing is, all right. So the movie. Well, let's get into the plot first, guys. You have to bear with us on this. This is our very first podcast. We're kind of just winging it. So like, if we're jumping all over the place, it's gonna take time for us to figure out the flow of how this fucking thing is gonna work. And so if we deviate from our points a lot, that's just the way that this is a real conversation that we're having. We're pretty much we're not professional podcasters, but we go and see movies so often. We figured, and we're always talking about it. Why not record it, put it out there, and see what other people think of the movies that we see. But yeah. So anyway, the movie is about Edward Helms and Owen Wilson. They're brothers. Twin brothers. Twins, first of all. Obviously, not identical. But that's kind of almost a little, I thought, a little far-fetched, in my opinion.
I'm all right with it.
I mean, Owen Wilson's a little older, I think, than Ed Helms. He's 6 years older in real life than Ed Helms. And I actually was starting to see the age on Owen Wilson, especially in a few of the early scenes of the movie. I noticed that there was some heavy wrinkling even on his hands.
Yeah, but
that's not to say, but no, that's good. At least he's not getting plastic surgery.
Yeah.
To try to make himself look better.
He's still legitimate.
He's still a legitimate actor, in my opinion. I like Owen Wilson, generally speaking, in most of the stuff that he's in. He's always kind of the same type of character, especially when it comes to comedies.
Yes, he was. He was
but
essentially Owen Wilson.
He's I'm the same guy in every movie. I say a lot of things that are, about the universe and being on the beach.
Old hippie.
Yeah, he's always like I'm an old hippie in every movie that he's in. But I like that character, so there's nothing wrong with that. So they're twins. Glenn Close plays their mother. It was nice to see Glenn Close in something that was a little more on the funny side, and she's got some funny lines in the movie.
Well, one thing I would say they're the movie's essentially these guys are just searching for their dad.
Yeah. Because Glenn Close drops a bombshell on him at her wedding.
Yeah.
That their who they thought to be their father, who they thought had died at a young age, is not actually their father. She kept it. She's been hiding it from them, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so she initially, this isn't too much of a spoiler, but she drops initially that their father is Terry Bradshaw, who is actually Terry Bradshaw in the movie, not like another character.
Yeah.
He's playing himself, who is Ed Helms' hero. So he's excited naturally about it, and so is Owen Wilson. So they decide to go on this quest, little road trip to confront Terry Bradshaw and tell them that they are his sons. And that's kind of funny. It starts off it gets into it pretty quick.
I thought it was going to be funnier because
Yeah.
there was a lot of melodrama. If you want
There was a little bit of we'll get into that. But it started off kind of definitely melodramatic in the beginning. You're seeing Ed Helms' life. It looks shitty.
Yeah.
Then you see Owen Wilson's, which looks much nicer by comparison. He's got a hot young wife. He's got a lot of money from some stupid deal that he has with a barbecue sauce, where he's like their spokesperson or whatever. And so, pretty much it jumps right into it. They go on this road trip. And, there's some funny shenanigans that happen.
They're not that funny.
They're not that funny. The jokes are kind of forced. Stuff we've seen. It's almost like stock jokes for Owen Wilson, Ed Helms movies.
Yeah, it wasn't anything really special. It wasn't, I actually really started like having a natural hearty laugh.
Mm-hmm. I got a couple big chuckles out of it, but there might have been like one big belly laugh I got out of the movie.
It's hard to make me laugh.
But I've noticed that about you. It's very rare I see you get a laugh off in a movie. Yeah. You're pretty hard. You see a lot of movies, so you can see more than me. So to be honest, if you get a laugh, I think maybe I heard you chuckle like one time during this movie.
Yeah, maybe once. I can't remember.
I can't even remember the joke, and that's not a good sign.
Yeah, they were predictable.
Yeah, you see the punchlines coming.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them come at the expense of Ed Helms most of the time.
Yeah.
There was a twist where where, and I guess it gets into spoiler territory, but where they go to see Bradshaw, and Bradshaw doesn't even for some reason pay attention to Owen Wilson. Which was weird to me, but it was funny, kind of.
Yeah.
But it was weird, and it was odd that he was so taken with Ed Helms being his kid, for no reason really, other than that he had some sort of distaste for Owen Wilson.
They didn't explain it.
They never explained it. Why doesn't he like Owen Wilson? And then by the time they find out that he's not, in fact, not their father. Which obviously he's the first person they stop.
Their father is kind of a surprise.
Yeah, it's a surprise, but you'll find that out at the end. We're not going to tell you, but you'll find that out if you go see the end of the movie. But they go through the rigmarole of going out and trying to find their dad through. They visit a bunch of different people. They're basically playing Scooby-Doo. Of finding my dad.
Each character that they meet, they potentially think is their dad.
Yeah, leads them,
gives them. Oh wait, this guy might be your dad actually. And then they all. Yeah. The jokes are pretty predictive about how hot their mom.
Yeah, as I said, I didn't like the fact that I did and I didn't. At first, the joke was funny that Bradshaw and the football players all were fucking the mom, and Ving Rhames kind of is friends with Bradshaw. That's his only role in the movie. I thought that he was a potential father, but he wasn't. He was just the neighbor ex-football player of,
that also slept with.
Who also it was another he gets into really graphic details about his sex escapades with Glenn Close, which is kind of gross if you think about it, because Ving Rhames is not that old.
I didn't find it gross. They showed pictures of the young Glenn Close, whoever the actress was. They probably had a model for those folks. Yeah. She was good looking. Yeah. But it just it became overused real quick.
It was like, we get it. They're the kids.
Every character touches
on it, and it's just like, okay, we get it. She was hot, and she was a slut, basically, so to speak, and she got around. Sorry, slut shaming is not a popular thing to do now, but that's what they were getting at.
She was sexually liberated.
Yeah, she was sexually liberated.
And they even made a joke to that end at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't that. It was just an overused trope.
Yeah, it was overused as shit, and it was definitely something that I got sick of after the first couple times.
Yeah, there wasn't many, like I said, for me the movie wasn't really that many laughs.
No. And so, overall, and then we'll get into some of the other cameos. Cat Williams shows up as a hitchhiker in the movie that they pick up along their road trip. Pretty funny.
Yeah.
Cameo. I will say that was probably the highlight, in my opinion,
I would agree.
of the movie. And they didn't go too over the top with it, which I was very happy to see. They didn't have him get all Cat Williams-esque.
Yeah.
This is a very toned down Cat Williams, and I liked it. And it actually.
But I guess my problem with it is all he did was further the story. It's kind of a spoiler. Yeah. He was from the next town that they were trying to go to. Yeah, and it helps move the story forward, which isn't a bad thing. It's good, but and there was a nice little, they had a nice chemistry. I felt like with the three of them in the car together. There was a nice chemistry. I actually think it would have been a better movie if he was in there from the beginning.
I think so too. I think that he didn't have enough screen time in the movie. I was kind of hoping he would have had more to do in the movie, but I look at this as a mark because, like you said, we haven't seen Cat Williams show up in a movie in a while because, or at least anything notable that's got a major release behind it because of all his controversy out there. But I'm looking to see that maybe he's maturing and, because I believe the guy, he's always made me laugh in the movies he's in, Friday movies that he's in, he was very funny in. His comedy is very funny. I think he's a very talented guy. I'd like to see him get out of this garbage that he's in with his personal life and, make it back to the big screen more often. Because I think, just like, what it reminded me of? It reminded me of when Chris Tucker came back and did Silver Linings Playbook. He had that small role in there.
But he was good.
But Silver Linings is a much better movie. Yeah. But he had that small role, but it was a great little role for him, and I think it showed, promise for Chris Tucker the same way it's doing for Cat Williams. So, I'll say that I'm going to add a little bit of a point to the movie just because of Cat Williams showing up in the movie. He did a good job.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't think everybody did a good job in this movie. I don't think anybody phoned it in.
It was just not a good movie.
No, it just wasn't that great. The actors worked with what they had.
Yeah.
And I think it was directed okay. I don't think it was necessarily directed poorly. I feel like it was edited kind of poorly together.
Well, I don't think, like we were saying when we got out, I don't think they knew what direction to go with the movie. Like,
right.
Make it a comedy.
Well, then I guess I could put that on the director, because I feel like I don't think that the scenes that were good were directed poorly. I think that, like, the focus of this movie was...
Focus on the funny, or, focus on the drama.
Yeah, the drama, it felt very patched together. Yeah. And it felt like they probably did some reshoots on this movie a lot.
Like there was a scene where one of the characters thought he slept with his sister.
Mm-hmm.
And
felt out of place.
It was very predictable that was going to happen, that she was going to be related to them.
Yeah, it just seemed unneeded too.
Yeah. And it wasn't needed. It was just,
It felt like they forced that in there to have a love interest for Ed Helms, because they hint in the beginning that he's lonely since his wife left him.
Yeah.
And, he's, he needs to get back out there. He's never been with anybody else. And it's like,
they just kind of rigged it in there.
They kind of just threw it in there. I did like seeing that female that played her was I forget what her name is, but she plays she's in the League.
Yep. Her name is Katie Aselton.
Katie Aselton. She plays what's his face's Kevin's wife on the League.
Yeah.
And she's really funny on that show. And
I liked her on the League a lot.
And very underused in this movie. Sadly, she has more potential than what they gave her here, and but it's just good to see her on screen because the League's over with. But
if I had my druthers the way I would have, I completely agree. She was great on the League. She's got really good comedic timing. She's good.
She's good.
And the way I would have done this movie is I would have focused it as a comedy. Definitely. And I would have had, you got the two guys, the two brothers.
Yeah.
They want to go find their dad. Hey, just make them married to the character. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then you could have.
They could have had she could have been maybe for instance, she's married to Ed Helms in the beginning of the movie, and they're going through they might be going through what may become a divorce, and then have it wrap around at the end that through finding the father, closure. Then they realize they can rekindle their life together, and that would have been a better payoff in my opinion than what they were.
Or not even even take out the conflict of him having marriage. Just focus on the comedy. I mean, you can do some like old fashioned Ed Helms dick jokes that he's done, and what was that movie with Jennifer Aniston and they did the road trip. And he came from The Hangover, that kind of comedy. I laughed during The Hangover. I laughed a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there was just, Ed Helms, I feel like, kind of just, if there was somebody that I feel like, I wouldn't say that he phoned it in, but I feel like they just were like, be you in The Hangover. Yeah. Just play the same guy that you played in The Hangover in this movie. A guy who's beaten down and, and he's great at that, but I feel like I've just seen him do that so many times in every movie that he's in. He did it in the only time I've seen he kind of
even in The Office.
Yeah, one of my favorite Ed Helms movies, and it's is Cedar Rapids. I don't know if you ever saw Cedar Rapids. You should check that out if you get a chance. That's probably one of my favorite performances by him because he plays a little. He's himself. It's definitely an Ed Helms-ish character, but it's definitely got a little bit of a different twist to it, and the movie is just better in general. You could check that out. But overall, we could go on about, but like there's.
One thing that bothered me is I liked him a lot with the beard. I thought he was great with the beard for some reason.
I liked his look in this. I think it would be cool to see him more often with it.
I honestly, it kind of reminded me of, because I see him in The Office. I still watch Office. Mm-hmm. Jim Krasinski's in that new Tom Clancy show.
Yeah, and he got a beard.
I saw Ed Helms as more of like an action, I could actually see him as a more dramatic character with that, because he doesn't remind me of The Office. Oh. He doesn't remind me of.
I thought you were gonna say you remind him of an action star. I was like, I was like, I can't see Ed Helms.
But I mean, I can see him in more like drama, like sci-fi.
Yeah, or like maybe playing like
fiction type.
I could see him getting more involved into a serious role, because when he does play the dramatic, he's good at it. And I think there's a few moments in this movie that you do feel like you connect with the story a little bit, because their relationship as brothers is a little more believable when they do get rid of the comedy for a second and focus on them being brothers, and the melodrama kind of seeps in a little bit. But I think that at least gives Ed Helms and Owen Wilson something different to hang their hat on when it comes to acting, as opposed to just doing the same rigmarole that they always do. So, all right, we got other movies to talk about. So, like, what would you give Father Figures then?
Like out of 10? Out
of 10.
I'd probably give it a 6.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd probably maybe go with a 6.5, somewhere between a 6 and a 7 out of 10. It's decent enough for a watch. It's definitely not a recommend for the movie theater, in my opinion, unless you really are desperate for a comedy or something that you just want to turn your brain off and go in and watch. I will give them props, like we were just talking about this over dinner, that at least it's an original movie. Like, it's not a remake or a rehash of something else. They tried something here.
Yeah, and took a chance.
They took a chance. It just didn't really pan out the way that it should have went. So yeah, Father Figures, 6, 7-ish for me, 6 for Jovan. It's not a great movie. Maybe wait to play it out on Netflix or something like that. Yeah. But all right, so moving on. What was another movie that we saw?
We saw Jumanji.
We saw Jumanji. That was a movie that we just saw, and not. That was a few nights ago.
Yeah, so we saw it a few nights. It's not necessarily fresh in our minds, but it's still pretty fresh.
It's still pretty fresh.
Good movie.
If you haven't seen the previews for it, I don't know where you're living, because they're everywhere now. It's got The Rock, Kevin Hart,
Jack
Black, and I don't know who the female is. Can you look it up really quick? But there's a female in the movie. I know it's pretty terrible that we don't know that.
Well, I think she's
kind of newer, right? Is she younger, kind of newer actress on the scene?
Her name is Karen Gillan.
Karen Gillan. She looked familiar.
She's been in.
What else has she been in?
Selfie. She was Guardians of the Galaxy Nebula.
She played Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy. That is what I know her from.
Yeah.
That name I knew sounded familiar. She played like the sister of the evil sister, right?
Yeah, Nebula.
Nebula.
Blue chick.
Yeah, the blue. Yeah, she was good in that, man. And she's pretty good in this. I think everybody in Jumanji was pretty good. This is a little bit different. If a lot of people were wondering, is this a rehash?
I thought it was.
Or is it a sequel, or is it a reboot? It's kind of a mix of all, because it does pay homage to the original. Mm-hmm. But what they do is somehow inject the magic that was in the board game into a video game. And now these 4 teenagers get transported while they're in detention. They find the video game, and they get transported into the world of Jumanji. And basically, they become the avatars that they selected, and have to figure out the way out of the game by basically beating the game.
Yeah.
So
go through and solve the puzzles.
You have to beat the game to get out as a team. So it's a pretty straightforward, A to B plot. But it's there's obviously a lot of things that happen along the way. I don't think that the plot itself is what carries this movie at all. It's the actors.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely the actors. The plot is just, let's put these actors in various situations and see how they can make us laugh.
And let them do their thing. And you know what? They did, man. This movie solely carried by the actors, primarily The Rock and Jack Black, in my opinion.
I would have gone Kevin Hart.
Black. I would say Kevin Hart definitely stepped it up too. The only reason I would maybe disagree is that I feel like Kevin Hart, every one of those actors, I felt like embodied some aspect of their teenage version, the real version of themselves, except for Kevin Hart. I feel like Kevin Hart was still too much Kevin Hart. When he was like, yes, there was a few moments where you saw the football player guy come through, but it was, when they were fighting with each other.
I think that was the whole point of his character, was that because he's no longer like the original. In the original, when they were kids, as a teenager, he was like a 6'4" huge football player.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he becomes like 5 foot nut and Kevin Hart in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's what they were going for, is he's the only one that really didn't. Because as a teenager, his life was great. It looked like he was hooking up with cheerleaders as a football star.
Yeah.
But then, he gets to Jumanji and he's kind of not.
No, and I get that, and they do showcase that a little bit. Like I said, when they have that little spat between The Rock and Kevin Hart.
The Rock, for me,
I think I like the fact that he embodied the nerd pretty well.
Yeah.
I feel like he did a good job with that.
To me, it's it's just another Rock. He's got really good comedic timing.
Yeah, he does.
But it was just another, like I said, a lot of it to me was just another Rock movie, because he did that in that.
Once it gets into the action scenes, yes, it's very much like, okay, now it's time to show off my muscles and my wrestling skills.
But he did the same thing. He actually did his move from WWF. I read in the trivia on IMDb.
Yeah, he did like a rock bottom.
Yeah.
To somebody in the movie.
Yeah.
Which I think he throws those in as the Easter eggs. He's done it in other movies too.
Yeah.
Because obviously a lot of the people that go to see his movies are fans of him from when he was a wrestler. He still is a wrestler, technically. Yeah. He still shows up.
I haven't watched wrestling since I was a kid. But
he hasn't been there in a couple of years, but he always pops his head in every once in a while when he's got time off from doing movies.
But I guess my point with The Rock was that he. It reminded me a lot of that in something like National Intelligence or Covert Intelligence, when he was with the other Kevin Rock.
You know what? I didn't actually see that. I need to check that out.
Because he plays the super nerd, who grows up into the muscle-bound super action star, like spy hero.
Oh no! You know what I did see? I saw half of the movie and I at home, and I actually stopped watching.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
I like Jumanji just because I like the idea of those like secret fantasy islands, adventure. But the one thing I really didn't like about Jumanji, I couldn't really get into the villain.
No, the villain was played by Bobby Cannavale, who is a great actor. And I feel like they kind of squandered the chance for him to really shine through here. I think that he was okay, but I feel like he was just but also at the same time, he was supposed to be playing a video game villain, which is kind of a generic, like, I'm a bad guy kind of thing, and I have, he's programmed to act a certain way. And so I think he did a good job at that, but I also feel like they could have did more with it.
His power was he could control animals with his voice.
Yes, and it was something about, also he was cursed, right? It was basically he had a curse on him from trying to take the power of the Jumanji stone or whatever.
Yeah.
So he was trying to get the stone back so that he can get uncursed or something like that. That was his whole purpose as a villain, is to get the stone, to take back control of Jumanji. And then he's like not cursed and like got bugs crawling out of him or whatever. But yeah, it was kind of unclear as exactly what he was as a villain. It was just that he was the bad guy, and you had to avoid him and his henchmen. Yeah. And that part of it I did like, is that the fact that they kind of did stick to the formula of like being in a video game. Yeah. I think they did a good job with that, with the losing lives and things like that. I like that aspect of it.
One thing that the more I think about it though is like this is gonna be a spoiler, but I can't remember who. Like, they had to return the Jumanji stone,
right?
And it was where was it when they because I remember they dropped it at the beginning of the air.
They drop it when they're in the helicopter, and I think it falls out. One of the characters drops it out of the bag.
But where do they get it?
Where do they pick it up? I think they just find it. They fly back down and they get it.
Yeah, but I mean originally before they dropped it.
Because it's just given to them by what's his face, the guy, Nigel. Yeah.
Okay. So my question then is if they need to return it, like, number one, like as far as the loophole or part of the story, why didn't Nigel return it? And it seemed like everything was going fine.
Well, I think that was the whole point of it, is that it's a video game, and
I guess I'm overthinking it.
He's just, I mean, that's the thing. They're NPCs, so the whole thing is, like, that's why I like the fact that they repeat themselves a lot in the movie. Like, that character just keeps kind of repeating it. Come with me, and he just kind of, the way he even introduces himself to each one of the avatars, one by one, in the same kind of generic fashion. Like, I loved that. I thought that was really good attention to detail, you know, and also
one of the characters that they didn't really mention in the previews was that. Someone else who'd been trapped. He'd been trapped in the game for 20 years.
Oh yeah. That's kind of like a spoiler a little bit. But there's another character that's introduced, played by Nick Jonas. Is it one of the Jonas brothers?
I think so.
I think it's Nick Jonas. He's actually not bad in this.
No,
you know, you're thinking it's a Jonas Brothers, so you're not going to expect much out of them acting wise. But I thought that he did an okay job.
Nick Jonas.
Nick Jonas. Yeah, I think he did an okay job, and you know. Hey, maybe we'll see a Zac Efron kind of flip for him getting into the movie scene. I think I could see that. He did fine. He held his own in the movie. Nothing spectacular, but, you know, I'm interested to see if he shows up in anything else coming out. But I'm going to talk now about Jack Black. I'm very happy with his performance in this. Thought he did a great job playing the girl character. He plays the high school kind of like prom queen type character. You know, that's way too into social media and Instagramming, and
like a Valley girl.
Yeah, and so she ends up in the body of Jack Black, and he does a good job of embodying that character. And not that I think he couldn't do that. He's an amazing character actor. Always has been. Ever since back in like the High Fidelity or even Cable Guy, if you remember him in Cable Guy, he played what's his face's friend.
I think one point of reference that we should make clear is that me and Brian are both a little older.
Yeah, we're a little bit older, so we might throw some references from movies in the 90s and 80s that
we watched growing up.
Yeah, so but Jack Black, I mean, kind of bust onto the scene in the mid to late 90s more so.
Orange County was.
Orange County was, I think, one of his breakout roles. High Fidelity was definitely one of his breakout roles. You know, and I've seen him do a ton of movies since then, mostly comedy, but he's also had a couple dramatic movies come out, and I think he's always held his own. He does a really great job. He did a great job here. I think he's better in this than he was in Goosebumps. Yeah, which was something that came out like a year ago or so.
Yeah, I saw that.
Me too. And I'm much happier with his performance in this. They gave him a much better character to play with here, and it shows. I did get a little tiresome. A couple of the scenes were a little corny, like the scene where he's teaching the girl how to flirt. The other girl how to flirt. It was a little over the top, like hokey for me, but. You know, they didn't hang around on it too long, so it was okay.
There was a scene where he wasn't. No, it was the girl, Jillian, dance fighting. I thought was good.
Yeah, the dance fighting stuff was pretty fun. I was happy that they transitioned from her flirting into dance fighting, so that was kind of it allowed her to still be herself while also, you know, kind of growing as a character. Yeah. This is the nerd girl who's played that takes over the body of the like kind of Lara Croft Tomb Raider type
Interesting enough,
avatar.
If you read the trivia, they actually mentioned the Lara Croft connection. That was her outfit was based on that.
Oh, of course. I mean, and that's funny because they're actually going to be coming out with a new Tomb Raider movie soon. But yeah, I was overall happy with her performance. I thought like I said, every actor in this movie brought their A game. Because this movie is all about the characters and not really about the story, because the story is the same as the original Jumanji. You've got to play the game to get out of it. And they did a good job. It's a different twist on it. There's not really much more that I have to say about the movie. It was directed well. I think that the action scenes were pretty good. There was, you know, a decent amount of action in it for what it was. maybe the villain could have been a little bit better.
I think it was just like a standard, like if you're going to look at it from a perspective, if you like The Rock, it was just a standard The Rock movie.
Yeah.
Beats some guys, flexes his muscles, a few comedic lines. Jack Black had his, Black did a great job.
Kevin Hart, good job, solid job. Yeah. I would just like to see Kevin Hart maybe stretch his acting range more in the future, but he's not at that part of his career yet. He's still in the early stages of his career where...
Did he give up stand-up?
No, he's still doing it. I think it's just that, think of it as like, I like to liken his career to that of Eddie Murphy, except he still does stand-up. Mm-hmm. Whereas, remember in the beginning of Eddie Murphy's career in the 80s and early 90s, he was always kind of playing Eddie Murphy. He always did the laugh and everything. Yeah. And I think that Kevin Hart's still at that point of his career where he's at the meat of his career where comedy is still his big thing. So we're not going to see much of a diversity out of him into maybe dramatic roles or anything like that anytime soon. I don't see that happening for at least another few years.
Agree. I can't see Kevin Hart as a dramatic actor.
Not yet.
Say I'm wrong, but
a lot of people thought that about Robin Williams when he was playing Mork on Mork and Mindy. So so you never know. Never say never. If Kevin Hart ever somehow ends up listening to this, I would say just try to take on some other roles that might expand your horizons in the world of acting so that you can keep a career going if people get tired of the comedy that you're doing. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and give Jumanji, I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
I'd probably go 7. I'm a little more conservative, but if you're going to go see a movie, it's not a bad movie. Take the kids.
Yeah. It's a light 8 for me. Yeah. I would say it's like more in the upper echelons of the 7s. But it's a solid movie for what it is. I think I'm giving it an 8 right now because I was so pleasantly surprised with how entertained I was by the movie. I did not expect shit from this movie. Yeah. And to be honest, like that right now. Now, if I go back to give it another watch, I bet you I will not feel the same about it. I could agree. I bet you I'll knock it down to a 7 after that. So right now it's an 8. Maybe it'll become a 7 once it comes out in DVD. But for now, that's where we leave it with Jumanji. Check it out. It's still in theaters.
I would definitely. One thing I will say is I don't like to say don't go see a movie.
Yeah.
Because people do work hard. It's not necessarily a bad movie.
No.
If you're gonna go see a movie, this was a solid one.
Yeah.
Jumanji was definitely.
You can take the kids to this. And you can be entertained as well when you take the kids to it. Because that's the thing. Man, there's nothing worse than having to be stuck going to see a kids movie. That was one of the only things. I'm not typically a family movie fan, but it did have some of those corny moments in it. But you're gonna end up feeling, that you were entertained as an adult walking out because there's enough stuff in there for adults. So anyway, that's I'll just leave it on that. But all right, so moving forward, what's the?
We saw Jumanji.
What did we see last night? We saw All the Money in the World. We came to see Father Figures, but it was sold out. So which was interesting.
No, it wasn't sold out. There was a problem with the reel.
It was broken. That's right. Broken reel here at the Marcus Theaters in Orland Park. But actually, it turned out better that we didn't see it last night because we had to see All the Money in the World. And I hadn't planned that.
Yeah, he didn't want to. I definitely.
I wasn't in the mood for it at the time. I really wasn't.
I love spy movies.
I'm usually a crime drama fan, but I was just like my brain wasn't turned on to it. But you know what? I got sucked into it really fast. This is a great movie. Yeah. I can't. What's there to say? Great movie all around. If you don't know what the movie's about, All the Money for All. It's called All the Money in the World.
All the Money in the World.
All the Money in the World. No, I thought it was like, is it for All the Money? No, it's All the Money in the World.
Basically, it's a true story. It's based off of very inspired events, I guess. But it is basically a very rich oil tycoon, J.P. Getty. His grandson, his estranged grandson, is kidnapped. Yep. By Italian mafia, and they say, hey, you have literally. He was the world's first billionaire. Yeah, this is the richest guy. That not only was he the richest man in the world, he was the richest man in recorded history. Yes, and he had more money than anybody had ever had at any point in time. And this guy, such a shrewd,
businessman, such a cruel man, and he refuses to pay anything to get back his grandson. And the fight of the movie is that Michelle Williams, who's the boy's mother, is basically going head to head with not only trying to get with the Italian mob to get back the son, she's also having to deal with Getty, trying to get the money, getting him to pay for the ransom.
Yeah, he's the only one that she knows that can afford that.
Yeah, obviously, and that's what the kidnappers are hoping on. Yeah. They're hoping to get from,
since he's a rich oil tycoon, he has ex-spy Mark Wahlberg. That's his man, his negotiator. Mm-hmm. I guess they reveal that he's an ex-CIA agent. Mm-hmm. They use him to act as kind of a go-between between the kidnappers and
the mom and also Getty himself. Yeah. But I won't get too deep into the details of what happens. But what can I say about this movie? It's everything that you would want out of a crime drama. Fantastic acting by a great cast. Obviously, the big thing with this movie is that Christopher Plummer replaced Kevin Spacey as Getty, and they had to reshoot all of the scenes in the movie that he was in a matter of 10 days. 10 days they had to shoot it, and you know what? I couldn't tell that it didn't feel rushed.
I like Christopher Plummer a lot. I think he would have been a better choice than Kevin Spacey to begin with.
And he was the second choice. He was in the running to play him, but he lost out to Kevin Spacey. And I think originally the reason for that was that in some of the earlier scenes of the movie, in the flashback scenes, there's supposed to be a younger version of him in the movie, and they probably were going to plan to use just Kevin Spacey in his normal current self, and then have him. But I saw the photos, and I saw the original trailer. Yeah. And to me, it looked way too much prosthetic makeup, and it didn't look great. So I'm way happy that they went with Christopher Plummer. I think he's an underrated actor he's a legend, and he's not used enough. And how many more years is that guy going to have on this planet? We might as well get him in some good movies like this.
Well, it's also if you need someone to play an elderly character, it's better to have an elderly person do it rather than
And he kills it, man. He is so cold and so but also charismatic too. He's a charismatic but really cold piece of shit in this movie, he's such when he is on screen, he owns the scene. Every scene he is in, he owns it. And even the scenes where he's getting chewed out by Mark Wahlberg.
I wanted to hit him. When he, you just give him the money.
You rich piece of shit. How dare you? $17 million is nothing to you. You make that in not even.
They said you make that an interest in a day or something.
That's nothing. It's a blip to you, but to him, what it's about is not. And you'll learn about this in the movie. And it might get in a little spoilery. It's more about him winning and him not allowing somebody to take advantage of him. He wants to always feel like he has the upper hand, and and also. There's a little bit of a bitter rivalry over the custody of the kids. Yeah.
He does some really shady stuff.
Yeah. In regards to that, you'll see in the movie. Just see this movie. That's all I could say, to be honest. This is one of those movies I'm not going to give away spoilers on because you need to see this film. It's going to be a nominated
I expect
movie
it will be.
For a ton of different categories. I'm sure it's going to get. I don't know if it's going to win Best Picture of the Year, but it's definitely going to be nominated at the Oscars for it. And I could see Michelle Williams possibly winning Best Actress. Yeah. For this, I could possibly, she's definitely gonna be nominated.
Christopher Plummer.
If to be honest, I would love to see him win for this. Right now, if I would say going into the award season, I liken him as a favorite right now.
One of the characters that I liked was the guy they called him. Cinquanta. He was the Italian. He was one of the mafiosos that was involved in the kidnapping. Yeah. And he did a great job. Apparently, he's a European that
guy was great. Yeah, that was actually somebody I was going to touch on, and I wanted to know, what's his name?
Romain
Fantastic job by that guy. That guy actually had a huge role in this movie, and I thought he was just going to be playing a small part but as you actually see, his character is one of the more interesting and most redeeming characters in the movie, because you see a transformation in this kidnapper that you don't see in almost any other character in the movie.
You can tell he feels bad about what he's doing, but he's doing it, most likely opposite.
And if anything, you see, I love what they did with Michelle Williams' character, because they actually kind of made her more cold as the movie moved on. If you noticed that,
I think they showed her character growing, that she realized she can't be so emotional.
Yeah, she can't be so emotional, but she also almost lets the Getty side of, even though she's not a true Getty, but she's from that family.
They said you're like him now.
Yeah, but it's like you are like she's slowly not becoming him, but she's like embodying characteristics of that family just through being.
Taken on.
She realizes she has to be as cold and calculating almost as he is for this to work out for her and for her kid. It definitely has a few moments in this movie that are squeamish moments, like tense.
I don't think this is a spoiler because this is a true story.
Yeah.
They do get him back.
Yeah.
So,
no, I mean this is it's a true
like
story.
The Titanic. It did sink.
Yeah.
But,
he's narrating the movie at the beginning. The kid is, so it's kind of a telling thing.
But I will say this at the end, in the last scene, it looks like she redeems herself, if you will. She comes back to her roots.
Yes, and it's got it's got a decent ending to the movie, and but I would say every actor in this movie, I'm very happy with their performances. I would say if there was somebody who was the weakest link acting-wise in the movie, performance-wise, it would be Mark Wahlberg. I didn't hate his performance. I don't think he deserves any kind of nomination for this because he plays Mark Wahlberg, as he does in a lot of these types of movies where he's,
kind of suave.
He's got a few nice moments in the movie where, like, the showdown between him and Getty at the end is really nice turn for him, and that's a good scene, solid scene for him. But it's still, maybe it's just because I've been seeing him in a lot of comedic movies lately.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm having a hard time believing in him as a hard-nosed detective.
I think he did a good job.
He did
I bought
job.
it. I liked.
Oh, he does fine. He does fine. I think they could have used somebody else, though. Personally, I think there's other actors that maybe would have done it
possibly
more justice.
I will say this. I even liked Timothy Hutton.
You know what? I
was surprised to see him.
To be honest, I would have loved to see that role that Mark Wahlberg got go to somebody with the caliber of Timothy Hutton, or someone that's a little less known right now and less big of a star. Because I think that there are actors that are character actors out there that would have played this role with a little bit more enthusiasm than I think I saw out of Mark Wahlberg. I feel like Mark's in so much stuff.
I think they were looking for, he was a...
They need a name. They need more of a name, too, in the movie to
but
sell
also, he was, an special agent. They need, secret agent. They need a in-shape guy who can also be swap, kind of James Bondish, but, not really James Bond.
I'm glad they didn't go after any kind of romance angle, because this is this is a fictionalized version of the true events. Obviously, there's parts that are fictionalized for dramatic effect, and it says that in the movie. But
it reminded me of the director Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
We
haven't even touched on the fact that it's directed by Ridley Scott. This does not feel like a typical Ridley Scott movie. I will say that.
I was expecting a little more action out of it.
You said that to me, but you know what? And I normally would just because it's a Ridley Scott movie, but I'm glad that I didn't, because this movie does not dictate that kind of action. I think it may have detracted from the movie, from the plot and everything like that, if all of a sudden we went into some, like, chase scene or something like that. There was a little bit of that in there towards the end, but and in the middle when he is, I'm sorry, spoiler, he escapes. The kid escapes the farmhouse at one point in the movie, and there's a little bit of a chase sequence there. Like I said, these aren't really spoilers because it's a true story.
It wasn't really even a chase. He just kind of...
He gets away.
Yeah.
But there was, a nice little tense moment where he's in that farmhouse with, or police station rather.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, is he going to get away? And, obviously he doesn't until later in the movie. But
if you want to see, like I said, if you want to see a good movie, Ridley Scott, you've got a solid cast, great story. It's
great story,
and the fact that I like historical dramas.
Oh yeah.
This is based on true events.
Another one where I feel like the actors really brought this movie to life. Mm-hmm. Like they, this is, the directing is fantastic. But like I said, I wouldn't even guess that this was a Ridley Scott movie based on the directing alone. Which don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean,
I could see some of it. You know what it reminded me of a lot though. Now that you mentioned it, that movie Ransom.
A little bit with Mel Gibson.
No, Russell Crowe. No, was it Russell?
Ransom was from the '90s with Mel Gibson.
What was the one with
Give me back my son.
With Russell Crowe? Where he plays a hostage negotiator,
I forget that movie.
But, I'm gonna look it up.
Look that up.
But it reminded me a lot. His character. I think that might have been based on this event because that's what I saw a lot. But like I said, Ridley Scott, I'm a big fan. I like. He's done some of my favorite movies. Man on Fire, probably being one of them.
Is that the movie Man on Fire?
No.
You're talking about?
No.
Man on Fire is what a grossly underrated movie. But yeah, so I mean, overall, I would say that All the Money in the World, fantastic movie. It's one of the best of the season that's out right now. It's definitely going to be a nominee at all the awards shows. I really kind of hope that Christopher Plummer wins for Best Actor at the Oscars for this. If he's not nominated for it, I'm going to be very surprised. And I can't really give any other predictions right now because I don't know who else is nominated. And I haven't maybe seen all the Oscar contenders yet. So I'm going to go ahead and give All the Money in the World a 9 out of 10. I think it's a fantastic crime drama. You guys are doing yourself an injustice if you don't go see this movie. You should see it. It's definitely one of the better movies that has been out this year. And that's definitely my pick of the week in terms, because we've seen a few movies this week, and obviously that beats out Jumanji and Father Figures. No way, Father Figures is much better. 9 out of 10 for me. What is it for you?
I'd probably go 8.5. I'm
You're more conservative. You're a little more conservative than me. Like I said, again, I'm one of these kind of guys that when I go, because I didn't have much of an expectation, and that's what also gave me the ability to give this a 9 out of 10, is that I was not in the mood to see a movie like that. But it turned me very quickly, and I got sucked into this movie so fast, and I was very much not in the mood for something that was a thinker, anything where I had to pay attention. That's why I wanted to see Father Figures. I wanted something that was just kind of stupid, that I could let wash over my brain. But this movie sucked me in very fast. 9 out of 10 easily for now. Maybe it'll be a 10 out of 10 the next time I see it. Maybe it'll become an 8 out of 10. I don't know. It depends on what my second viewing of the movie gives me feelings-wise at home. But yeah, so those are the 3 movies that we saw this week.
Yep.
There were a couple of other movies that we had seen. We can go over those really fast if you want to abridged versions.
Yeah. Star Wars.
We obviously could talk quickly about Star Wars. I'm sure since this is our first podcast, it kind of seems silly for us to not bring up Star Wars. Yes, I've seen Star Wars. I've seen it twice.
I saw it once.
Yeah, you saw it with me.
Yeah, it was good, but I don't know. I'm not going to get into the canon or some of what these people are going into.
I'm not going to get too deep into it. I mean, what it hasn't been said about Star Wars right now, The Last Jedi is obviously what we're talking about, the second film, the new trilogy. And I will say this, I think that it is a entertaining movie. I think it's definitely different than many of the other Star Wars films, but I feel like every Star Wars film is kind of different. Yet there's elements that are the same, but they all kind of have their own flavor to them. This is a different director, Rian Johnson.
Yep.
And, this guy's, you can definitely see his directorial mark on this movie. It definitely has a different direction than The Force Awakens. Force Awakens had much more of a nostalgic feel to it, and I think there was more fan service in The Force Awakens for everybody. This film kind of drops that out of the picture. Yes, there's a little bit of fan service here and there, but not enough where it's noticeable. But then there's some negative things in this film. There's some plot holes that I'm not a fan of. I'm not going to get too deep into that spoiler stuff because I feel like everybody's beat this movie to death already.
It's like a dead horse.
But what do you feel?
One thing that bothered me was, I guess it's kind of a spoiler, but not really, is there's a scene where Chewbacca meets these little animals on the island.
I think that's a lot of people.
It just seems like
it feels like they just kind of shoved it in there to sell toys.
Can we just fit some sort of toy in the movie?
We gotta sell some toys for this.
One thing, I'm not gonna get really into. I enjoyed it. I love Star Wars. I grew up on it. But one thing that kind of I'm already worried about is something I did want to talk about is Solo comes out on May 25th, 2018. We're going to see it. Everyone's going to see it. But I guess my big problem is that I've been going on and on about this. I actually want to do a whole podcast about this.
Yeah, I mean, we could easily.
Is that it seems like Star Wars is now going to be the next Marvel. Yeah. And I understand it's going to be just money. Marvel is Disney. Yeah.
Disney is Star Wars now. So, I mean, this is what Disney does. Yeah. They take franchises and they see the marketability of it and they see the way that they can turn this into toys, into cartoons, into clothing and all this merchandising, everything that goes with it. And they beat it into the ground. And I am worried, so very, very worried, as you are too, and I know a lot of my friends are, that magic of Star Wars is going to quickly dissipate. Yeah. And where we used to get excited to go see a Star Wars movie, just like I used to get excited to go see the new Marvel movies, and now I'm not. I see the previews for the new Avengers movie, and I'm not even excited. I'm like, oh great, another movie. Like
it's just one thing I've found about comic book movies is that it seems like the same story. Yeah. Whether it's Justice League or it's all right. They're importing some sort of space army, undead army, zombie army. Intergalactic
same thing,
army.
Different packaging. Yeah. That's all it is.
And it's just like okay.
It's like it's just the same. And you could argue that I guess for any movie that everything
kind of has comics, but it's just. I don't know.
I'm just over I'm getting bored with comic book movies, and I'm very, very concerned that I'm going to be getting bored with Star Wars movies. Yeah. And I really wish that, I'm hoping that Disney realizes that may become a detriment to them ultimately and make them lose more money if they continue to make more and more and more, thinking that everyone's just going to buy it and buy it and buy it until the point that, this is just going to, it's going to become like it's a fad that just dies out. And I really don't want, I would hate to see Star Wars die that kind of death. Like, that's just terrible. Star Wars deserves to be put out in a way, go out in style the way that they did back in the 80s.
Yeah, it's a cultural
thing.
Phenomenon, yeah.
And it's as much as I love Star Wars, and it was rough to wait 3 years between every movie when the prequels even came out, and even though the prequels weren't that great, but I don't need to see 2 new Star Wars movies in 1 year. Yeah. We got that with Force Awakens and Rogue One. Now we're getting that with The Last Jedi and the Solo movie.
It was Force Awakens and then Rogue One next year, and then this year, and then next year. It should be maybe one a year.
It's not even, at this point, though, it's not one per year.
Solo's going to be in 6 months.
That's only 6 months after.
And then Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, Ryan Johnson is he's planning to do a whole new trilogy.
Yeah, and it's already listed on his upcoming projects.
That's so messed up. I mean, because J.J. Abrams is directing the last episode 9, right?
I believe
so. Which I'm interested to see how that turns out, because that almost kind of has a what they did with the original trilogy. You had George Lucas direct the first one. Ian Kershner directed Strikes Back, which had a darker feel, kind of like the Last Jedi does. And then Lucas came back and directed Jedi.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they're doing with this. Wait, did he do Return of the Jedi? Lucas did Return of the Jedi, right? Am I like losing my mind? Or did he not do Return of the Jedi?
Looking it up right now.
Sorry to all my Star Wars nerds out there.
Even J.J. Abrams.
I don't know why I'm like.
Is just it's.
Return of the Jedi was
Richard Marquand.
Oh no, somebody else directed it. Never mind. Oops. Well, he was a writer on it, but whatever.
Yeah. But I guess it's to the point though where I guess one of the big things that. It's just they're going to kill a franchise. One of the things I wanted to do with this podcast was, everyone's going to see Star Wars, no matter how bad it is.
No, you're going to see it even if it's a dumpster fire. Yeah. Like you're going to go see it because it's Star Wars. And people want to have something to complain about, and which is another reason why I think people are complaining so much about this movie. We live in a culture where everyone's a fucking critic.
Everyone can do a podcast.
Everyone can do. Look at us. We're sitting in our car doing this. So it's like, it's very easy for us to sit here and critique these movies, but it is valid point that I think we're bringing up here, because many people feel this way, is that too much of a good thing is bad. It just always is when it comes to anything in life. You eat too much cake, you're gonna get diabetes.
Yeah.
So and that's what they're gonna do with this. They're gonna shove too much of Star Wars down everyone's throat. The franchise is gonna get a disease and it's gonna die. And that's so horrible.
Because they were talking about doing a live-action TV show.
For fuck's sake.
Whatever. If you're gonna do it, just do cartoons. I don't mind cartoons.
Yeah. Or if you're gonna do like a one-off kind of made-for-TV special or something like that, sure, go for it. But
Christmas special.
Yeah, some garbage like that. But overall, I would say that my expectations were met. For The Last Jedi, I was entertained enough. I don't feel the need to see it any time soon, since I've seen it twice. I'm giving it a very light 8 out of 10 right now. I would say maybe more 7.5 out of 10. Maybe on the third viewing.
I was even, I haven't seen it once, and I'm thinking like maybe 6 or 7.
Oh wow.
But you're not
alone in that. I think a lot of people feel that way.
I want to see it again.
I was entertained enough that I could feel comfortable giving it closer to an 8. Like I would say like a 7.7 if I'm going to get really critiqued right now. But it was decent enough. I would say it's on par with Force Awakens, maybe even a little bit better. So yeah, that's
even Force Awakens. For me, that was just a rehash.
It was just a lot of rehash. Yeah, I would actually right now only give Force Awakens probably a 7 out of 10.
For all you out there, I want to give you something I've noticed, and I think I've told him.
Yeah.
Is if you watch movies like Force Awakens or even one of the Terminator films, it's like they take parts from the movies, like in Terminator Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it would potentially be a good film, but there were some things I liked and a lot I didn't. But they just take the truck scene from Terminator 2. All right, we'll reverse it. Put him in the truck, and then they just shake it up in a bag, and they lay it out, and then they just, it's like, all right, this is the new movie.
That's what
Same
they
thing
do.
with Star Wars. Oh, you're on a desert planet, and we'll make her an orphan. Oh, that's a good idea, And then it's just, it's the same movie. They just take elements of the others, they shake them up. They put them out, and then we buy it because we so love the first ones. And I think our love for the first Star Wars trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
All right, well, we've been talking about Star Wars for a good 10 minutes now, so I already went a little too bloated. I mean, I kind of had a feeling that would go that way because Star Wars is a whole another animal, but we could save that for another podcast. But the other movie we saw was Disaster Artist, and we saw that a couple of weeks ago. And I want to just touch on that really quick. I saw that twice as well in the theaters.
Yeah.
Very good movie. James Franco and Dave Franco and Seth Rogen. If you're not familiar with what The Disaster Artist is, it's a movie based off of a book with the same title that's written by Greg Sestero, who is the star of a cult so bad it's good movie called The Room. And that's what The Room is. It's written, directed, and starring this man named Tommy Wiseau, and that's who James Franco plays in the movie. This kind of larger-than-life, horrible actor that's just director everything, and it's basically this story behind the best worst movie of all time, and. Here's the thing. A lot of people ask me this, do I need to see The Room? Because not many people that I know have seen The Room. Only a good handful have. They ask me, do I have to see The Room to go see The Disaster Artist and enjoy it? And it's like, no, I would though. I would go watch The Room first, or even after. Either way, see The Room, because it's worth seeing, even if you're not one of these people that normally likes bad movies, I think you'll find entertainment value out of The Room.
You're going to question, though, what the hell were they thinking?
Yeah, what were they thinking when they made this? And not only, what was Tommy thinking? Because once you see The Disaster Artist, you're going to realize what Tommy was thinking, because he's just like this delusional kind of... Also, he's foreign, and I think he has this warped perspective of what American culture is. And so, he thinks that this is what it's like to be an American. And so, when how, say you have somebody that's a friend that's foreign trying to tell you a joke in English, and they miss the punchlines, and they say things wrong, and it fucks up the whole joke. But somehow it ends up funny, or even funnier because of the way they said it. That's what I like in The Room too. It's like if this movie was in the hands of a good director, and they punched the script up, and because the story itself is basically kind of a timeless tale of a guy. Two best friends, and one of them ends up sleeping with the other's girlfriend. And it's there's definitely room for something good to have, a good story out of that. But obviously it goes to shit because of horrible directing and just inexperience
and
writing. But not so much what Tommy was thinking when he read it, but what were these other actors thinking? And that's what The Disaster Artist does. It gets us into the psyche of the people that were surrounding Tommy Wiseau, so that we could actually kind of dive into that. What was it like to be on the set? And be in the minds of the people that were there.
Seth Rogen and some of the other guys. You'll see them. They've been in a lot of Seth Rogen films. Paul
Scheer. He plays one of the.
Where they're just like, all right, I guess that works. Because they don't know what's going on.
I listened to an interview with Sandy Sklar, or whatever his name is, whatever the guy's name is, the guy who Seth Rogen was playing. Who was the script supervisor on The Room, and he actually he's having a real beef right now with Tommy Wiseau, and he has for a long time, and even with Greg Sestero and a lot of the people involved with The Room, that he is adamant that he was the director of The Room, and that Tommy never yelled action, never yelled cut, never directed any of the actors really, at all. He occasionally would say, we do scene here, or, we do this now. He would say what scenes we're going to do today, but he would not actually direct the scenes. He would not get the performances out of the actors or anything like that. It was all Sandy. And Greg and Tommy never obviously does not agree with that. They said yes, he helped direct some of the scenes. Yes, he yelled action and cut on some of the scenes, but that was mostly the scenes that Tommy was in.
Yeah.
And that, or if Tommy wasn't available to be on set to do that at that moment, he would fill in for it. So if anything, he was more of an assistant director on the movie, or a script supervisor. But Sandy is adamant. No, this movie is funny because of what I did. He's like, we knew that this movie was gonna be a piece of shit.
Yeah.
This guy just had money that he kept throwing at the movie, but he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. He just kept saying, we're just gonna shoot this, and he's like, we were just making money to have the fucking time of our lives on this set, and he's like, I was determined to make the worst movie possible, and because he's like, I never thought this thing was going to reach theaters.
Yeah.
I never thought anybody was going to even see the fucking movie.
Yeah.
He's like, there's a lot of movies that come out that he's like that I've directed even, or a lot of things that I've been a part of that get shelved and they never even make the light of day. He's like, there's tens of thousands of movies that he's like never have seen the light of day. They're sitting in the vaults of studios that probably will never see the light and never be on the screen, and not even DVD or anything. Like it's just. They're so bad, or they were just like contract issues or whatever. But he said that this movie, he never thought that this would go anywhere. So, but obviously it did.
Yeah.
It picked up that Rocky Horror kind of cult following behind it.
People still, I have friends that go to see it when it's played downtown.
I went to the Music Box one year to see it, and everyone gets into it. They throw spoons at the screen every time they see the spoons in the picture in the background.
Yeah.
They yell out the lines at the screen and everything. And it is one of those kinds of movies that, and I think The Disaster Artist gives it justice. Now, here's where I disagree. There are people that want to give, that are saying that James Franco should be nominated for an Oscar for this performance. I don't agree with that. I think that is almost silly, in my opinion, to think that he should be nominated for any kind of prestigious award for basically what he's doing is an impersonation of somebody the entire movie.
So he's getting an Oscar for his acting, like another guy who was criticized for his acting.
Yeah,
it's kind of
very meta, but it's like it's also just I think it's so silly that they would even put. They're also saying this movie's. I mean. Don't get me wrong, Disaster Artist is a fun movie. It's good for what it is. It's entertaining as hell.
It's better comedy than Father Figures.
It's definitely better than Father Figures. I would say, if I'm going to go ahead and score it, I'm giving Disaster Artist an 8 out of 10.
I would definitely agree.
It's an 8 out of 10. I laughed a lot during this movie, really good laughs, because there's some, but it also has a little bit of heart behind it. You do feel bad for the Tommy Wiseau character a few times, because you see that this guy is struggling hard to chase his dream, and he's slowly realizing that he's not going to be the man that he wants to be.
That, and that's kind of what I think at the end is that I actually felt really bad, because he wants to be James Franco in real life.
Yeah, he wanted to be James Franco. He wanted to be one of these James Dean-esque movie stars. And
if you read the trivia, I'm a big fan of IMDb trivia.
Yeah.
They said that he told the real Greg Sestero that the only actors who could play him would be James Franco
or Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
He said Johnny Depp, and then he said, well, what if the second, who was second choice? We can't. He said, we're not going to get Depp. And he just goes, because, he was talking to James Franco. He said, well, who would you second? He's like, you. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, that's, where he was going with it anyway. But he's like, because he wanted this to be him and his brother's vehicle. And I think that his brother does a fine job. Dave Franco.
Everyone did a good job.
Yeah, Dave Franco did a fine job as Greg. I think, Seth Rogen, his name is attached to the top of the movie. But it's not a Seth Rogen movie. Yes, he's a producer. Yes, he's in the movie a decent amount, but he's not like a main character. He's definitely a side character. I think his name is just in the top billing for the namesake. But there's a lot of good cameos in this as well. Paul Scheer, like we said. Nathan Fielder who plays a couple. There's a couple. Josh Hutcherson plays Denny, which I thought if anybody did a great impersonation of one of the characters in the movie, I thought his Denny impersonation was spot on. Hannibal Buress was in the film, as one of the crew people. Sharon Stone played an agent. I think Greg Sestero even is in the movie at some point as a casting agent or something.
Yeah, he was.
Just like a quick little thing he jumped in.
Everyone did a great job.
Everybody did a great job. Like I said, definitely an 8 out of 10 for me. Go see The Disaster Artist. I think it's only in select theaters right now, but it's probably going to drop on video on demand soon, I'm assuming, or Netflix, probably within the next month or two. Jason Mantzoukas, he's in that. I like that guy a lot from the league. But overall, a great movie. So that's our week at the movies, man. Or last couple weeks rather. So feel free to. I don't know where we're gonna upload this yet. I'm thinking it's gonna be probably YouTube. I'm gonna edit it together, and we'll get this thing up soon. We'll try to drop one every week if we can, or maybe every other week. But that's it for now. I'm Brian.
Jovan.
And leave your comments in the comments section.
And if there's any movies you want us to see, just let us know and we'll try to see them.
Right. If there's anything that you want us to review, drop it in the comments section. Thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you later.